As I was thinking about this text this morning, I was thinking about scars. And I wonder how many of you have a scar? None? Okay, because it was about 50-60% in the first service. So that was 9 a.m. So I'm thinking, you're awake by now. But with those scars, how many of you have a story to tell about your scar? I'm not going to ask you to tell it. But how many of you have a story to tell with your scars? Well, yeah. I would venture to say that at one time or another, most of us have taken delight in sharing how we got our scar. A scar is a tangible reminder of what happened the day we got the injury, right? To the pain, or the blood, or the visit to emergency, or the stitches. Scars can be a reminder of an operation, an accident, or even a foolish act on our part that caused it, right? Scars are not only on our skin. There are scars upon our hearts. These scars have been caused by the wounds that others have inflicted on us, and they can often be painful. And they can often cause bizarre behavior to come forth from us. So there was a father, and the father gave his son a bag of nails. And he told his son that every time he lost his temper or was abusive to others, he must go to the back fence and hammer in a nail. So the first day, the boy drove 37 nails into the fence. Over the next few weeks, he somehow began to learn to control his anger, and the number of nails hammered gradually dwindled daily. The number of nails in the fence enabled him to see how many times he had hurt someone when he lost his sense of himself and controlling himself. And so finally the day came when the boy didn't lose his temper at all. He ran to tell his father all about it, and his father suggested then that the boy go and pull out one nail each day that he was able to hold his temper. It took a while, but finally the young boy was able to tell his father that all the nails were gone. Then the father took his son to the fence, and he said, "You've done well. But look at the holes in the fence. The fence will never be the same again." He pointed to the holes, and he continued, "When you say things that hurt others, they leave a scar, just like this hole in the fence. This nail hole will be with this fence as long as this fence is here. In the same way, people have scars on their hearts because of what others have done to them. For some, the scars will never fade and will be there all the days of their life on this earth." In today's gospel reading, Jesus appears behind locked doors to his frightened disciples. Their hearts are scarred because they have flashbacks to the previous Friday when their friend and their teacher was nailed to the cross until he died. Remembering nothing he had taught them, that in 3 days he would rise. They were so deeply wounded. He appears to them, and he shows them his hands and his side, the scars, and then and only then they saw and believed. Well, what happens to us when we've been scarred? oftentimes our hearts go into a lockdown mode. When someone lets you down, when they embarrass you, it's natural to want to get even, or at least let them sweat. Where were you guys when I needed you? How will I ever trust you again? And trust has to be re-earned when it's been broken. But with Jesus, things look different. They get one breath. And it's not I'm going to close my eyes, I'm going to breathe deeply to the count of 10, and by the time I open them, you better be gone. It's not that kind of a breath. As Jesus gave up his breath on the cross, because he is power, because he is life, because he is breath, the same breath that was given to Adam in the creation that gave him life is now breathed out upon his disciples. He breathes his Spirit upon them, power upon them, life upon them. God does some amazing things that we cannot do. But we can receive breath of his Spirit, and with it gives us peace and total forgiveness. No need to remind them of their failures or punishment. He breathes who he is upon them. And then we have Thomas, right? I mean, he didn't see it all. He shows up late to the party, he misses the main event, and he will not believe. He's hurting too deeply to ever want to hurt this way again, so he can't take it. And he says, unless I see the nail marks in his hands and see the wounds on his side, I just will not believe it. And we can be pretty tough on Thomas, right? We come up with sayings like, you're such a doubting Thomas. But he's hurting. And the story of the resurrection is too much for him to deal with. Isn't it true that sometimes when you want to hope for something, you want to hope so badly, but you don't want to be disappointed? So you won't give yourself over to the possibility of a hope? You can't bear the thought of it not being true? Not coming true, of being disappointed? Thomas is basically saying, I've been hurt. And I've hurt enough already, and I don't want to hurt anymore. I'm scarred, and I don't want to go through it again. So I will not believe unless there's proof. And he gets his wish. A week later, Jesus appears and says, Thomas, put your finger here into my side. Stop doubting and believe. He responds, my Lord, my God. And Jesus responds, you believe because you see. Blessed are those who have not seen and yet believe. The name Thomas, called Didymus, it means twin. Thomas represents all humanity, you and me. We come with inability, failure, slow, lacking, faithfulness that is in doubt. We come hurting. We have fears. We have self-protections that keep us from being honest and vulnerable. And Jesus passes to us the breath of his Spirit and forgiveness. And the power of that forgiveness enables the disciples and Thomas to move from their situation into something amazing that is just ahead. We all need forgiveness. But isn't it interesting that it's sometimes we can't seem to forgive ourselves until we've been forgiven? And somehow the power of forgiveness from another actually helps us to forgive ourselves. And when it's held back, we just fight, if just in our own minds. And that other person, unforgiven, is held back too. Oftentimes, we cannot find the grace within ourselves to forgive ourselves. But when another human being breathes with love and forgiveness upon us, we're given the strength to move forward in relationships and in life. And sometimes we cannot move into the future until we let go of the past. And I don't know how many of you have seen the movie Unbroken, but that's what it's all about. It's about an American Olympic athlete, Louis Zamperini, who was captured and he was held a prisoner of war in Japan during the Second World War. He was severely mistreated. And for him to survive the beatings that he received was the only way he figured out that he could win. So when Louis returned from the prisoner of war camp to the States, he really struggled, post-traumatic stress, and he suffered with addictions and all kinds of issues, and he would have nightmares about strangling his captors. And then he came upon a Billy Graham crusade, and everything changed. A relationship with Jesus began, and with the gifts of forgiveness, his nightmares about his captors and strangling them stopped. And so he determined that what he also needed to do was release his captors from what was in their hearts. So he traveled to Japan, and he met with all those who were his captors and offered forgiveness to them. And there was only one, it was the most cruel among them, who would not meet with him. Louis learned that a lifetime is a long time to carry the weight of an unforgiving heart. The Easter story, the experience, is all about forgiveness and moving forward. Not holding on to the need to punish or blame or accuse. Oh, we feel those things, all right. And sometimes we may need acts of restitution to be able to trust someone again. But grace is not about getting even. And sometimes in our being scarred and scarring others, we need some assurance that things are moving forward. And that's okay. Thomas, Jesus said, put your fingers here and touch my scars. The God of the universe in Jesus Christ is both wounded and resurrected at the same time. You'd think that the power of life over death would come back from the grave with a perfect body. But no. Instead, we have this teaching that it is by and through his wounds that we are healed. Not avoiding, not denying, not erasing it as if it never happened, not brushing human sin under the carpet. No, it's there, not a white elephant in the room. The wounds are real. And it's not that we're saved just through Easter Sunday morning resurrection. I think you get that because of the attendance. It was a full house on Good Friday. We're saved through both his death and his resurrection. Through wounding, power is unleashed. In dying, we rise up. This now is the Spirit's breath upon us and becomes our story and our experience. We are all wounded and we remain so. We don't attain some sort of perfection because of our faith. Remember this, I shared it with you in February, Luther's teaching about what we really are, simul justus et peccator. We are simultaneously justified, right with God, and a sinner. And that is the story of our lives this entire side of eternity. We live carrying the wounds of this life, our sin, other sin, things done, things left undone, and yet somehow in all of it, God breathes life and peace into your heart and into mine. And that's what transforms our hearts, forgives us, renews us, and leads us, so that we might be the children of God. Enables us to forgive ourselves, and then at times our hearts change. And we notice that we're doing it, life, a little differently. We're pounding less nails into the fence, pulling more out, aware more of scars, and we hold our breath, or we are enabled to hold our breath when we need to, because it's not ours in the first place. And the universe moves forward through wounding with resurrection power, one person at a time, one situation at a time, one moment at a time, one breath at a time. Next week, we're going to talk more about doubting and believing because of this story in the difficult times. Hope to see you back.